Violence continues to rock cities across the nation. This week, President Trump said he planned to send federal law enforcement to several major U.S. cities to crack down on the violent protests that have been occurring in those cities. Joining me now is Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, you've recently compared the protesters in Portland to the insurrectionists who seceded from the Union during the Civil War.
Well, Eric, what you've seen in Portland for many nights now is attacks on federal property, federal installations, federal facilities. There's been an effort to firebomb the courthouse there. There's been vandalism of the courthouse repeatedly. The federal government doesn't just have the power, it has a responsibility to protect federal property and to protect federal installations. That is exactly what happened in 1861 when insurrectionists in South Carolina blockaded and then shelled Fort Sumter. Abraham Lincoln faced the exact same kind of decision. Just like Abraham Lincoln, we cannot allow violent insurrectionists in our streets to attack federal buildings or federal property.
Senator, in Portland, Mayor Wheeler, and Chicago, Mayor Lightfoot, and in New York, Mayor de Blasio have said if you put federal law enforcement in my city, specifically Lightfoot and de Blasio, they will go hard at Trump. In other words, they'll go to the courts and try and stop that, to try and block that. What do you say to those mayors?
Well, first, of course, the president has the duty, not just the power, to protect innocent lives and property of American citizens. It should fall first to mayors and their police forces to do that job. But if the mayors refuse to let the police do their job and federal offenses are being committed, it is not, again, not just the power, but the responsibility of the federal government to protect innocent lives and property, as has happened in Portland. It's not just about federal property, though. Anytime someone throws an incendiary device, they could be charged under federal law. There are numerous drug crimes that are being committed, drug crimes or gun crimes that are committed in the streets of major cities. That's one reason why there's so much crime, so many terrible shootings like we saw earlier this week in Chicago when a funeral was shot up. So the federal government has a responsibility and it has the power to take the steps necessary to protect not only its own property, but the lives and the property of its citizens. Mayors should be doing that first and foremost. In many of these places, though, they're essentially in league with these violent rioters and looters, trying to defund the police and not allowing the police to do their job.
And so the way it works, Senator, as you know, I think the audience needs to understand, Trump will suggest that he's going to put federal law enforcement officers into these cities. The cities will go to court to try and block it. If they do get some sort of block order, should Trump veto that and just go in anyway?
Well, the Department of Justice should immediately appeal that to the Court of Appeals and to the Supreme Court if necessary. There are federal officers and agents in our streets every day. They are there to help protect us. Look in Arkansas. We have a strong cooperative relationship with the U.S. Attorney, with the FBI, with the DEA. They work together in task forces. They help bring charges against the most serious, violent, and repeat felons because federal sentences are often longer and there is no parole in the federal system. These mayors should be seeking out that kind of cooperative relationship with the federal government to help stop the terrible, violent crime wave we've seen in this country in recent weeks in cities like Chicago and New York and Portland.
You know, I think the vast majority of Americans would agree with you. We need to stop this, and not really sure how to do it. The mayor's pushing back. Senator, you wrote the op-ed. Let's talk a little bit about that. The op-ed that you put in the New York Times. James Bennett, the op-ed editor, had to resign because of that, placing your op-ed. And you were talking about sending in troops. Where is the media right now? The New York Times is a paper of record. Why is it that something that is strictly opinion, that you probably represent a vast majority, certainly of conservative opinion, can't make it onto the New York Times without getting someone fired?
Well, the New York Times has revealed itself not to be the paper of record, but to be a national laughingstock. I mean, they still have not pointed out where my op-ed had any errors, any factual mistakes. They claimed it didn't meet their standards. I would have to agree with them on that, Eric. It didn't meet their standards. It far exceeded their usual very low standards for op-eds. But in the end, even though they couldn't say any of that, they still fired the top editor because they would not stand up to a woke child mob in their newsroom who had been weaned in college on social justice seminars and safe spaces and preventing microaggressions. This is the real world. People have to understand that they're going to be confronted with opinions that they might not like. Opinions, like my opinion that the Insurrection Act should be used as a last resort to restore order in our cities, that have a majority of support among the American people.
You know, Senator, and since that occurred, Barry Weiss, a prominent reporter with the New York Times, who says she's, I guess she calls herself conservative or down the middle. I'm not so sure of that. I would even call her leaning left. Said she had the lead because she felt a hostile work environment for just having some sort of centrist opinion. I mean, the New York Times typically, historically, for 100 and some years has been the paper of record showing both sides. Has that ship sailed now? Is the New York Times completely a left-wing newspaper publication now?
Oh yeah, the New York Times ship sailed long ago, and I think they've really dropped the mask entirely, not only over the last 6 weeks since my op-ed ran, but really over the last 3.5 years. They've revealed themselves to be the media wing of the far left of the Democratic Party. And Barry Weiss sounds like she faced serious circumstances of sexual harassment and religious discrimination, and the New York Times could face liability for that because it was happening on open internal dialogue channels which editors and senior management had access to. No one, no matter what their politics are, right, left, or center, should have to face that kind of circumstance in their workplace. Sounds like the New York Times have real problems that they need to address.
Senator Tom Cotton, we really appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.